last thing Naomi Bennett expected to find in her dead husband's office was proof he'd been lying to her for years. She sat on the floor of Derek's home office at 2 in the morning, surrounded by papers that made no sense. The funeral had been 8 hours ago. 200 people had come to pay respects to Derek Bennett, successful corporate executive, devoted husband, pillar of the community. Naomi had stood there in her black dress, accepting condolences, her face a mask of grief while her mind spun in confusion. Because 3 days before Derek's heart attack, he'd told her they couldn't afford to fix the roof. He'd said money was tight. He'd said they needed to be careful with spending. Now she held a property deed in her shaking hands. A farm in rural Georgia, purchased 8 years ago for $800,000. And beneath that, bank statements showing monthly transfers of $15,000 to something called Harvest Moon Agricultural LLC. $15,000. Every month. For 8 years. Naomi's breath came in short gasps. She'd been working double shifts as a nurse, picking up every overtime hour she could, believing they were struggling. She'd given up her dream of opening her own practice. She'd sold her grandmother's jewelry to help pay bills. And Derek had been spending $15,000 a month on a farm she'd never heard of. She remembered the one time she'd asked about it. 3 years ago, she'd found a receipt from a feed store in Willow Creek, Georgia. Derek's face had gone white, then red. "That property is a failed investment," he'd said, his voice sharp in a way it rarely was. "I don't want to talk about it. And Naomi, I'm serious about this. Don't ever go there. It's a reminder of the biggest mistake I ever made in business. Promise me you'll never go to Willow Creek." She'd promised because she loved him. Because he seemed genuinely upset. Because she trusted him. What a fool she'd been. Naomi stood up, her legs unsteady. The house felt different now, like a stage set where she'd been playing a role without knowing it. Every room held memories that might be lies. The kitchen where Derek had kissed her goodbye every morning. The bedroom where he'd held her and said he loved her. The living room where he'd sit with his laptop, claiming to be working on reports for his job. Had any of it been real? Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister. "How are you holding up? Do you need me to come over?" Naomi looked at the message, then at the papers scattered around her. She couldn't tell anyone yet. Not until she understood what she was looking at. She pulled up the address from the deed on her phone. Willow Creek was 3 hours south in the rural farmland outside Macon. The property was listed as 200 acres with multiple structures. 200 acres. Multiple structures. $15,000 a month. Derek had worked in corporate finance. He knew nothing about farming. So what was this place? What had he been paying for? Naomi's hands trembled as she kept searching through the papers. She found more bank statements, all from accounts she'd never known existed. Accounts in Derek's name only. Accounts that showed massive deposits, hundreds of thousands of dollars moving in and out. They told her Derek made $120,000 a year. She made $85,000 as a nurse. Together they should have been comfortable, but Derek always said his student loans and credit card debt ate up his income. She'd believed him. She'd taken on extra shifts. She'd given up her dream of starting a small medical practice because they couldn't afford the risk. But these statements showed Derek had access to millions. The room started to spin. Naomi sat down hard on Derek's leather chair, the one he'd special ordered last year, claiming it was on sale. It probably cost $3,000. Money he'd said they didn't have for her dream, but plenty for his comfort. She pulled up Google Earth on her phone and typed in the farm address. The satellite image showed a large main house, several outbuildings, and neat rows of what looked like crops or orchards. There were vehicles parked near the house. It didn't look abandoned. It looked active. Maintained. Expensive. Naomi stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was dark and quiet. Normal people sleeping in their normal houses, not discovering that their entire lives had been lies. Derek's words echoed in her memory. "Promise me you'll never go to Willow Creek." She promised. But Derek had promised things too. Love, honesty, partnership. In sickness and health. For richer or poorer, except they hadn't been poorer at all, had they? Only she had been poor while Derek did something with millions of dollars she knew nothing about. Naomi looked at her reflection in the dark window. At 42 years old, she looked tired. Worn down. She'd aged faster than she should have, working those double shifts, stressing about money that apparently didn't need to be stressed about. Something hard and cold settled in her chest. Derek was dead. He couldn't explain. He couldn't defend himself. He couldn't tell her what to do anymore. She was going to that farm. She was going to find out what her husband had been hiding. And then she was going to figure out what to do with the truth. Naomi grabbed her laptop and started searching for everything she could find about Harvest Moon Agricultural LLC. The company was registered in Georgia, established 8 years ago. Derek was listed as the owner. The business license said they produced organic specialty crops. Organic specialty crops. Derek, who'd never grown so much as a houseplant. She found social media pages for Harvest Moon Farms. Beautiful photos of produce, happy customers at farmers markets, awards for sustainable agriculture. The posts were regular and professional. Someone was running this business and doing it well. Someone who wasn't Derek. The last post was from 2 days ago, the day after Derek died. A photo of a woman's hands holding fresh tomatoes, with text about the importance of supporting local agriculture. The woman wearing those hands had red nail polish. Derek hated red nail polish. He'd asked Naomi to only wear neutral colors because red was too flashy. Naomi looked at her own bare nails. When had she stopped wearing the colors she liked? When had she become so small? She downloaded every document she could find about the farm, about Harvest Moon Agricultural LLC, about Derek's hidden accounts. She organized them into folders on her laptop. Then she went upstairs to her bedroom. No, not their bedroom anymore, just hers, and packed a bag. At dawn she would drive to Willow Creek. She would go to the farm Derek had forbidden her from seeing. And she would find out what her husband had been hiding that was worth $15,000 a month. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Naomi sat in Derek's office chair and watched the sky slowly lighten through the window. She didn't feel sad anymore. She felt angry. Determined. Derek had kept her in the dark for 8 years. He'd controlled their finances, made her believe they were struggling, took her inheritance money that her parents had left her, and built something secret with it. Well, Derek was gone now. And whatever he'd built, whatever he'd hidden, it belonged to her now. She wasn't the grieving widow anymore. She was a woman who'd been lied to, who'd been used, who'd worked herself to exhaustion for nothing. And she was about to take back everything that should have been hers from the beginning. Naomi left for Willow Creek at 6 in the morning, before any neighbors could see her go. She didn't want questions. Didn't want to explain where she was going or why. Let them think the grieving widow was resting. Let them think she was staying with family. The drive south took her through Atlanta's morning traffic, then out into the Georgia countryside. The further she drove, the more her stomach churned. Derek's voice kept playing in her head. Promise me you'll never go to Willow Creek. What? What had he been hiding that he needed her to promise never to see it? The landscape changed from suburban sprawl to rolling farmland. She passed roadside stands selling peaches, small towns with one stoplight, churches with handwritten signs announcing Sunday services. This was a world Derek had never shown her. In their 8 years of marriage, he'd never once suggested they take a drive through rural Georgia. Because he'd had another life here. A life she wasn't supposed to know about. The GPS directed her off the highway onto increasingly smaller roads. 2-lane country highways became 1-lane asphalt, which became gravel. She passed a hand-painted sign that said, Willow Creek, population 1,847. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister again. Naomi, I'm worried about you. Please call me. She silenced the phone. She couldn't talk to anyone yet. Not until she knew what she was dealing with. The GPS announced, arriving at destination on right. Naomi's breath caught as she turned into a long driveway lined with pecan trees. The driveway was paved, expensive paving, perfectly maintained. It curved through what looked like an orchard, then opened up to reveal a sprawling property that made her heart stop. This was no failed investment. This was no abandoned property. The main house was a beautiful 2-story farmhouse with a wraparound porch, freshly painted white with blue shutters. Solar panels covered the roof. Behind it stood a massive barn, also well-maintained, and several other outbuildings. She could see rows and rows of crops stretching into the distance, organized and obviously well-tended. 3 vehicles were parked near the house. A new pickup truck, a SUV, and a small sedan. This place wasn't just occupied. It was thriving. Naomi parked her car and sat for a moment, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Her whole body was shaking. This property had to be worth millions. The house alone was bigger and nicer than the modest 3-bedroom they'd lived in for 8 years. Derek had told her they couldn't afford to renovate their kitchen. But he'd been paying for this. She got out of the car on shaking legs. The morning air smelled like rich earth and growing things. Birds sang in the pecan trees. It was beautiful, peaceful. The kind of place people dreamed about. The kind of place Derek had kept secret from his wife. Before she could reach the porch, the front door opened. A woman stepped out, and Naomi felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. The woman was younger than her, maybe 35, with long dark hair and curves that looked good in worn jeans and a faded t-shirt. She was beautiful in an effortless way that made Naomi suddenly aware of her own hastily tied back hair in yesterday's clothes. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. Her voice was cautious but not unfriendly. "Are you looking for the farm stand? It doesn't open until 9, but I can sell you some produce early if you need it." Naomi found her voice. "I'm looking for information about this property. About Harvest Moon Agricultural." The woman's expression shifted. Something wary entered her eyes. "What kind of information?" "I'm Naomi Bennett." She watched the woman's face carefully. "Derek Bennett was my husband." The woman went completely white. She grabbed the porch railing for support. "You're what?" "My husband," Naomi repeated. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, distant and cold. "He died 5 days ago. Heart attack. And while going through his papers, I found the deed to this property." "That's not possible," the woman whispered. "Derek said he told me he was divorced. He said his ex-wife lived in Florida. He said." "He lied." Naomi's voice cracked. "I'm his wife. We were married for 8 years. We lived in Atlanta. Together. The whole time." The woman's face crumpled. She sat down hard on the porch steps, her hands covering her mouth. "Oh my God. Oh my God." Naomi's vision swam. She'd known, somewhere in her gut, that Derek had been having an affair. But seeing this woman, seeing her genuine shock and pain, made it real in a way that hurt worse than she'd imagined. "How long?" Naomi asked. The woman looked up at her with tears streaming down her face. 8 years. I've been here for 8 years. I believed we were building this together. I believed he loved me. 8 years. The entire length of Naomi's marriage. Derek had married her while already involved with this woman. Or he'd started this affair immediately after the wedding. Either way, every day of Naomi's marriage had been a lie. "What's your name?" Naomi asked. "Tiffany. Tiffany Rodriguez." She wiped her face. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about you." Naomi believed her. The woman's devastation was too real to be fake. They'd both been played by the same man. "Can I come in?" Naomi asked. "I think we need to talk." Tiffany nodded numbly and stood up. She led Naomi into the farmhouse, and Naomi had to stop in the doorway to catch her breath. The house was gorgeous. Hardwood floors, modern kitchen with granite counters and stainless steel appliances, comfortable furniture, and huge windows that let in natural light. The living room had a stone fireplace and built-in bookshelves. Framed photos covered the mantel. Photos of Derek and Tiffany. Derek and Tiffany at farmers markets. Derek and Tiffany standing in front of the barn. Derek and Tiffany holding each other and smiling. Naomi walked closer to the photos. In every single one Derek looked happy. Relaxed in a way he never had with her. He was wearing casual clothes she'd never seen before. Jeans and work shirts instead of his suits and ties. He looked like a different person. Maybe he had been a different person. Maybe the Derek she'd known was the lie, and this Derek was the real one. "He came here every week," Tiffany said quietly. "He said he worked in Atlanta during the week, stayed in a corporate apartment and came here on weekends. Sometimes he'd stay for a few weeks at a time, saying he was working remotely. I managed the farm day to day, but he was my partner in everything." "Your partner?" Naomi repeated. She turned to face Tiffany. "Did he give you any legal ownership? Is your name on any documents?" Tiffany hesitated. "He said we were partners. He showed me papers but I never actually signed anything. He said we'd make it official after his divorce was final. After he sold his house in Atlanta and moved here full-time." "He was never selling the house," Naomi said. "Because he was never getting divorced. Because we were married." Tiffany sat down on the couch, her face in her hands. "I gave him 8 years of my life. I built this farm. I worked 16-hour days. I believed in us." Naomi wanted to feel sympathy, but her own rage was too big. "He took my inheritance. My parents left me $400,000 when they died. Derek convinced me to invest it in his business opportunities. I thought it went to his company. But it came here, didn't it?" Tiffany looked up, her eyes wide. "The startup capital for the farm was $400,000. Derek said it was his savings from his corporate job. It was my money," Naomi said. Her voice was shaking. "My parents' money. And he used it to build a life with you." The two women stared at each other. Naomi saw her own pain reflected in Tiffany's eyes. They both loved Derek. They'd both believed his lies. They'd both given him years of their lives while he played house with the other one. I need to see the business records, Naomi said. All of them. I need to know exactly what Derek built here with my inheritance money. Tiffany nodded slowly. The office is upstairs. Everything's there. Financial records, business plans, supplier contracts, everything. She stood up. But Naomi, you should know, this farm is profitable. Really profitable. Last year we cleared $800,000 in net profit. This year we're on track for over $1 million. $1 million. While Naomi worked double shifts and worried about the electric bill. Show me everything, Naomi said. Tiffany led her upstairs to a home office that was clearly Derek's. His laptop sat on the desk. File cabinets lined one wall. A massive corkboard showed crop rotation schedules, supplier contacts, and delivery routes. Naomi opened the file cabinets and started pulling out folders. Business licenses, tax returns, contracts with high-end restaurants and grocery stores, employee records. The farm had 5 full-time workers and a dozen seasonal employees. This wasn't a side project. This was a full-scale agricultural business. And it was making money hand over fist. The specialty crops are the key, Tiffany explained, her voice mechanical. We grow heirloom tomatoes, specialty peppers, microgreens, edible flowers. Restaurants pay premium prices for organic, local produce. We also have the orchard, pecans and peaches. And we started a subscription box service 2 years ago for direct-to-consumer sales. Naomi looked at the tax returns. The business had grown every year. From $200,000 in revenue the first year to over $3 million last year. Even after expenses and the monthly payments to Derek's hidden accounts, the profit was staggering. Where did the money go? Naomi asked. If you made this much profit, where is it? Tiffany opened a laptop and pulled up bank statements. Derek managed the finances. He said he was reinvesting it, growing the business. He showed me spreadsheets about expansion plans. But when Naomi looked at the statements, she saw transfers going out to offshore accounts. Cayman Islands. Switzerland. Derek had been siphoning money out of the farm and hiding it. He was stealing from both of us, Naomi said. Tiffany's face went pale as she saw the statements. I didn't know about those transfers. He never showed me those accounts. Naomi sat down hard in Derek's office chair. Her husband had used her inheritance to start a farm, convinced another woman to run it while he lived a double life, made millions of dollars in profit, and then hidden that money in offshore accounts. He'd lied to both of them, used both of them, and he'd died before either of them could confront him. What happens now? Tiffany asked quietly. Naomi looked at her, this other woman who'd loved Derek, who'd worked so hard to build something she thought was hers. Part of Naomi wanted to rage at her, to blame her for the affair. But Tiffany had been lied to just as thoroughly. Now, Naomi said, her voice hard, I find out exactly how much Derek stole from me. And then I take back everything that should have been mine. She looked around the office at the evidence of Derek's secret empire. He'd thought he could keep her in the dark forever. He'd thought she'd never find out. But Derek was dead. And Naomi was just getting started. Naomi spent 3 hours going through every file in Derek's office while Tiffany sat in stunned silence at the desk. The more she uncovered, the angrier she became. This wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated years-long deception that had robbed her of her money, her dreams, and her dignity. There are more properties, Naomi said, holding up a folder. 4 more farms. All in Georgia. Tiffany's head snapped up. What? That's impossible. This is the only farm. I would know if there were others. Look. Naomi spread the documents across the desk. Property deeds for farms in Valdosta, Albany, Columbus, and Athens. Each one purchased over the past 5 years. Each one registered under different LLC names, but all with Derek as the owner. I don't understand, Tiffany whispered. Where did the money come from for all this? Naomi pulled up bank statements on Derek's laptop. He was taking profits from this farm and using them to buy more properties. Then he was taking loans against the properties to buy equipment and inventory. It's a whole network. She kept clicking through files. Each farm specialized in different crops. One grew mushrooms in climate-controlled buildings. Another focused on herbs and medicinal plants. A third raised heritage breed chickens and sold eggs to upscale markets. These farms are worth at least $10 million combined, Naomi said. Maybe more. And he told me we couldn't afford to fix our roof. Tiffany stood up and walked to the window, her arms wrapped around herself. He told me this farm was everything. He told me we were building our future together, just this property. I've been living here alone most of the time, working myself half to death, thinking I was his partner. You were his employee, Naomi said bluntly. He paid you in promises while he built an empire. I loved him, Tiffany said, her voice breaking. I actually loved him. So did I. Naomi's voice was flat. Look where it got us. She found more files, employee records for managers at each farm. Derek had hired people to run the other properties while Tiffany ran this one. None of them knew about the others. He'd compartmentalized his entire life. How did he manage all this? Tiffany asked. How did he keep track of everything? Naomi pointed to a calendar on the laptop. He scheduled it. Mondays and Tuesdays in Atlanta with me. Wednesdays here with you. Thursdays and Fridays visiting the other farms. Weekends rotating between properties. He told me he was traveling for work. He told you he was working in Atlanta. He probably told the other farm managers he was handling corporate business. It was brilliantly organized. Systematically cruel. Derek had built himself 5 different lives and juggled them all without anyone knowing the truth. I need air, Tiffany said suddenly. She walked out of the office and down the stairs. Naomi stayed at the desk, her hands shaking as she kept reading. She found Derek's personal journal in a locked drawer. She'd found the key taped under the desk. Her stomach turned as she read his entries. Naomi's inheritance came through. $400,000. Exactly what I needed for the Willow Creek property. She believes I'm investing it in tech stocks. She trusts me completely. It's almost too easy. Tiffany is perfect for running the farm. She knows agriculture and she's desperate for love after her divorce. She'll work hard and ask no questions as long as I tell her what she wants to hear. The Albany property is a gold mine. Heritage chickens sell for $8 per egg to restaurants. Profit margin is insane. Added $200,000 to the offshore accounts this quarter. Naomi wanted to cut back her nursing hours to start her own practice. Told her we couldn't afford it. Her overtime pays for the property insurance on all 5 farms. She'll never know. Naomi closed the journal before she threw up. Every word was calculated. Every manipulation was planned. Derek hadn't loved either of them. He'd used them both like chess pieces in a game only he knew he was playing. Her phone rang. Her sister again. Naomi answered this time. Where are you? Her sister demanded. I went to your house and you're not there. Naomi, what's going on? I'm in Willow Creek, Naomi said. Her voice sounded dead even to herself. I found out Derek had a whole other life. Multiple lives, actually. Farms. Affairs. Millions of dollars I didn't know about. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm coming down there. No. Naomi's voice was firm. Not yet. I need to handle this myself first. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Naomi, you don't have to do this alone. Yes, I do. She looked around Derek's office at the evidence of his betrayal. This is my fight. I'll call you when I'm ready. She hung up before her sister could argue. Then she went downstairs to find Tiffany. The other woman was standing in the kitchen, staring out the window at the fields. She'd made coffee. 2 mugs sat on the counter. I didn't know what else to do, Tiffany said. So I made coffee. Naomi took a mug. The normalcy of it was almost funny. 2 women who'd been sleeping with the same man, drinking coffee together while they figured out how he'd destroyed both their lives. I need to ask you something, Naomi said. And I need you to be honest. Tiffany nodded. Did Derek ever hit you? Threaten you? Hurt you? No, Tiffany said immediately. Never. He was gentle. Kind. At least I thought he was. Naomi nodded. Derek had never been violent with her either. His cruelty had been subtler. Financial control. Emotional manipulation. Making her question her own judgment while he systematically stole her future. He was worse than violent, Naomi said. He was smart about it. Tiffany set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. What are you going to do? Are you going to sue me? Take the farm? Legally I own it, Naomi said. As Derek's widow, everything in his name belongs to me now. All 5 farms. All the accounts. All of it. I have nothing in writing, Tiffany said. He always said we'd make it official, but we never did. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were in love. Naomi took a breath. I could kick you out. Sell this place. Take everything. Tiffany's eyes filled with tears. This farm is all I have. I gave up my apartment, my savings, everything to come here. If you take it, I have nowhere to go. Naomi looked at this woman who'd loved the same lying man. She should hate Tiffany. Should want her to suffer. But all she felt was tired. I'm not making any decisions today, Naomi said. I need to get a lawyer. I need to understand my legal position. And I need to figure out what Derek's been doing with all the money he made. She pulled out her phone and started researching attorneys in Atlanta. She needed someone who specialized in estate law and business fraud. Someone who could untangle the mess Derek had created. There's something else you should know, Tiffany said quietly. Derek had a life insurance policy. A big one. He showed it to me once, said it was through his corporate job. He said if anything happened to him, I'd be taken care of. Naomi's head snapped up. How much? $2 million. Naomi felt her blood run cold. She'd never heard about any life insurance policy. Derek had always said they couldn't afford life insurance. Did he name you as beneficiary? Naomi asked. He said he would, but he had to wait until his divorce was final. Tiffany's face crumpled. I'm such an idiot. No, Naomi said. You're not. Because if there's a life insurance policy, I'm the legal beneficiary. I'm his wife. And $2 million would go a long way toward paying me back for the inheritance he stole. She pulled out her laptop and started searching through Derek's email. She found it, correspondence with a life insurance company. A $2 million policy taken out 3 years ago. Beneficiary, Naomi Bennett. He never changed it, Naomi said. He took out the policy and named me, then probably lied to you about changing it later. Tiffany sat down hard. He really was a monster, wasn't he? Yes, Naomi said simply. He was. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Naomi stood up. I'm going back to Atlanta tonight. I need to find a good attorney and start the process of claiming everything that's legally mine, including this farm. What about me? Tiffany asked. What should I do? Naomi looked at her. Keep running the farm for now. Don't change anything. Don't sell anything. Don't make any business decisions. Just keep the operations going until I figure out my next move. You're letting me stay? For now, Naomi said. Because I need time to think. And because despite everything you didn't know I existed. You were a victim of Derek's lies just like I was. Thank you, Tiffany whispered. Don't thank me yet, Naomi said. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with any of this. But when I do decide, I'm going to do what's best for me. Not for Derek's memory. Not for you. For me. She gathered her things and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back. One more thing. Do you have any proof that Derek promised you partnership? Any texts, emails, recordings? Tiffany shook her head. He was always careful. Everything was verbal. He said it was better that way for tax purposes. Of course he did, Naomi said bitterly. He was protecting himself. Making sure neither of us had any leverage if we ever found out the truth. She walked out to her car, her mind spinning. Derek had orchestrated everything perfectly. Kept both women isolated from each other, from the truth, from any legal claim on his empire. He'd probably planned to eventually disappear with all the money, leaving both of them with nothing. But Derek was dead, and his perfect plan had died with him. Now everything belonged to Naomi. The farms, the money, the offshore accounts, all of it. She just had to figure out how to claim it. And what to do with Tiffany, who'd built an empire for a man who'd never intended to share it with her. As Naomi drove away from the farm, she looked in the rearview mirror at the beautiful property shrinking behind her. Derek's secret paradise. Built with her money. Run by his mistress. Generating millions he'd hidden away. Well, it was her paradise now. Her money. Her decision. And she was going to make Derek regret ever underestimating her. Even if he was already dead. Patricia Holmes had the kind of face that didn't give anything away. She sat across from Naomi in her downtown Atlanta office, reviewing the documents Naomi had brought, and her expression never changed. Not when she saw the property deeds. Not when she reviewed the offshore account statements. Not when Naomi explained about Tiffany. Your husband was quite thorough, Patricia finally said. She was in her 50s, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Frustratingly thorough, actually. He set up an elaborate corporate structure designed to hide assets from exactly this kind of discovery. Can you break it? Naomi asked. Oh, I can break it, Patricia said and smiled for the first time. The question is how long it will take and how much it will cost you. I don't care about the cost, Naomi said. I want everything that's mine. Patricia nodded approvingly. Good. Because this is going to be expensive and time-consuming. But here's what we know. As Derek's legal widow, you have a strong claim to everything. The farms are all registered in his name, which means they pass to you through his estate. What about Tiffany? Naomi asked. Ms. Rodriguez has no legal claim to anything, Patricia said bluntly. If she doesn't have signed partnership agreements, ownership documents, or proof of financial investment, she's just a mistress who was managing property for its owner. She worked for 8 years building that farm, Naomi said. She made it profitable. As an employee, Patricia said. Which means Derek could have fired her at any time with no compensation beyond her final paycheck. Was she receiving a salary? Naomi hadn't thought to ask. I don't know. Patricia made a note. We'll need to find out. If he was paying her a salary, that strengthens our position that she was an employee, not a partner. If he wasn't, things get more complicated. Over the next 2 hours, Patricia outlined their legal strategy. First, they'd file to claim Derek's estate. Second, they'd freeze all the offshore accounts to prevent anyone else from accessing them. Third, they'd get forensic accountants to trace every dollar Derek had moved and figure out exactly how much he'd stolen from Naomi's inheritance. The life insurance policy is good news, Patricia said. $2 million will give you liquid capital while we sort out the rest. I'll file the claim this week. How long will all this take? Naomi asked. Months. Maybe a year. Estate law is slow and Derek made it deliberately complicated. But we'll get there. Patricia leaned forward. What are your goals here? Do you want to sell the farms and walk away? Or do you want to keep them? Naomi had been thinking about this question for the entire drive back to Atlanta. I want to keep them. Derek built this with my money. I'm not going to let him steal my parents' legacy by having it all sold off and dispersed. Even if it means dealing with Tiffany? I don't know yet, Naomi admitted. Part of me wants to fire her and never see her again. But part of me knows she's the only person who actually knows how to run that farm. If I fire her and bring in someone new, I could destroy the whole operation. Patricia nodded. Business decisions and emotional decisions are often at odds. You'll need to separate them. Can you work with this woman? Can you trust her not to sabotage the farm if she knows she'll never own any part of it? I don't know, Naomi said again. You'll need to decide, Patricia said. Because legally you can evict her whenever you want. Morally, ethically, practically, those are different questions. But legally, that farm is yours and you can tell her to leave today if you choose. Naomi left Patricia's office with a thick folder of documents to sign and a timeline for the next steps. She sat in her car in the parking garage and called Tiffany. Hello. Tiffany answered immediately, her voice anxious. I met with my attorney, Naomi said. Legally, everything belongs to me. The farms, the accounts, all of it. You have no claim to any of it. Silence on the other end. Then, I understand. I'm not kicking you out yet, Naomi continued. But I need some questions answered. Were you on salary? Did Derek pay you for your work? At first he gave me cash, Tiffany said. A few $100s here and there. Later he set up a business account and paid me $3,000 a month as farm manager. But I never asked for more because I thought we were partners. I thought the farm's profit was ours together. $3,000 a month to run $1 million operation, Naomi said bitterly. He was paying you poverty wages for work that should have earned you 6 figures. I didn't care about the money, Tiffany said. I cared about us. Well, there was no us, Naomi said. There was Derek lying to you while he paid you barely enough to survive. Send me copies of all the payroll records. I need documentation of every payment he made to you. Okay, Tiffany said quietly. And Tiffany? I need you to keep running that farm exactly as you have been. Don't change anything. Don't tell the employees anything. Don't make any business decisions. Just keep things stable until I figure out what I'm doing. I will. Good. Naomi paused. And Tiffany? I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I believe that you didn't know about me. You got used just like I did. That doesn't make me feel better, Tiffany said. I know, Naomi replied. But it's the truth. She hung up and drove home. The house felt emptier than ever. Derek's presence was gone, but the weight of his lies remained. She walked through the rooms, seeing them differently now. Every piece of furniture Derek had bought. Every expense he'd approved. All of it bought with money that should have been invested in their future, not his secret empire. Her phone rang. Patricia. We have a problem, the attorney said. I filed a preliminary freeze on the offshore accounts and the banks are pushing back. Derek set up some kind of automatic transfer protocol. Money's been moving to a trust account in the Cayman Islands since his death. How much? Naomi asked. $800,000 so far. It's set to transfer everything within 30 days unless we can get a court order to stop it. Naomi's vision went red. Someone is stealing from me. Not exactly, Patricia said. Derek set this up as an automatic process. He probably planned it as a way to hide money if anyone ever came looking. The trust has no named beneficiary yet, which means it's in limbo. We need to move fast to claim it before someone else does. Who else would claim it? Naomi asked. I don't know. But Derek was clearly planning for multiple scenarios. He might have promised it to someone, or set up contingencies. We're working on getting the court order, but it's going to cost money for expedited filing and international attorneys. I don't care, Naomi said. Do it. Over the next week, Patricia's team moved like a military operation. They filed emergency motions, hired forensic accountants, and began the process of freezing Derek's assets before they could disappear into untraceable accounts. The forensic accountants discovered more than Naomi had imagined. Derek hadn't just built 5 farms. He'd created an entire shadow empire. He had investments in agricultural equipment companies. He owned shares in organic certification businesses. He'd even started buying farmland in Tennessee and North Carolina, planning to expand his operation. Your husband was building towards something big, the lead accountant told Naomi. Based on these projections, he planned to have a $50 million agricultural empire within 10 years. With my money? Naomi said. Yes, the accountant agreed. The seed capital all traces back to your $400,000 inheritance. Everything he built started with that. They traced money flows between accounts, documented every transfer, mapped out Derek's entire financial web. And the more they uncovered, the angrier Naomi became. Derek had made her feel small. Made her feel like her dreams weren't important. Made her work double shifts while he played emperor with her inheritance. But she wasn't small. She was the woman smart enough to uncover everything he'd hidden. Strong enough to fight for what was hers. And angry enough to take back every single thing he'd stolen. 2 weeks after Derek's funeral, Naomi received the first life insurance check. $2 million. She sat at her kitchen table and stared at the check, feeling nothing. This money should have made her happy. Should have felt like justice. Instead it felt like blood money. Payment for 8 years of lies. She deposited the check and used $50,000 to pay Patricia's retainer. The rest went into a new account Derek had never known about. Her money. Her safety net. Her future. Then she drove back to Willow Creek. She needed to see the farm again. Needed to understand what Derek had built with her parents' money. Tiffany was in the fields when Naomi arrived, supervising a harvest. She looked up as Naomi's car approached, her face wary. Can we talk? Naomi asked. They sat on the farmhouse porch, 2 women who'd loved the same lying man, trying to figure out how to move forward. I'm keeping the farm, Naomi said. All 5 farms. I'm not selling. Tiffany nodded. She'd probably expected this. But I can't run them myself, Naomi continued. I don't know anything about agriculture, so I need someone who does. Someone who knows these operations inside and out. You want me to keep managing the farm, Tiffany said. I want you to work for me, Naomi corrected. As an employee. On a proper salary. With a contract that makes it clear you're working for me, not building equity or ownership. Tiffany was quiet for a long moment. What kind of salary? $85,000 a year to start, Naomi said. Same as I make as a nurse. Plus health insurance and 2 weeks vacation. Industry standard for a farm manager of this size. That's generous, Tiffany admitted. It's fair, Naomi said. Derek was paying you $36,000 a year to run $1 million operation. That was exploitation. I won't do that. But I also won't pretend you're my partner or let you think you have any ownership claim. I understand, Tiffany said. Do you? Naomi leaned forward. Because I need to know you can work for me. That you won't sabotage the farm. That you won't try to claim what isn't yours. Can you do that? Tiffany met her eyes. Derek lied to both of us. He used both of us. He made me believe I was building something that was mine, but he never intended to give me anything. I'm angry at him, not at you. You're just taking back what he stole. Yes, Naomi said. I am. Then I can work for you, Tiffany said. Not because I like it. Not because it's what I want. But because I need the job and because you're right, you need someone who knows how to run this place. Good, Naomi said. Patricia will draw up an employment contract. You'll sign it. You'll manage the day-to-day operations and report to me weekly. I'll handle the finances and big-picture decisions. Can you work with that? Yes, Tiffany said. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Tiffany said, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I know I didn't know about you, but I still feel responsible. I'm the reason he could lie to you so easily. No, Naomi said. Derek is the reason. He's the one who chose to lie. To both of us. Don't take responsibility for his choices. Tiffany nodded, tears in her eyes. Naomi stood up. I'll have the contract ready by next week. In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. And Tiffany? Don't make me regret this. I won't, Tiffany promised. Naomi drove back to Atlanta feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She wasn't just taking back her money. She was building something new. Something Derek had never intended for her to have. Control. Power. Her own future. Derek had thought he could keep her small and submissive forever. But Derek was wrong. And Naomi was just getting started. The forensic accountants worked for 6 weeks before presenting Naomi with their full report. She sat in Patricia's office, reading page after page of financial analysis, and felt her understanding of Derek's deception grow with every line. He hadn't just been hiding money. He'd been building a criminal enterprise. Tax fraud, Patricia said, pointing to highlighted sections. He was underreporting farm income by routing sales through shell companies, then claiming the farms were barely profitable while funneling millions into offshore accounts. How much? Naomi asked. We estimate he evaded at least $2 million in taxes over the past 5 years, the lead accountant said. Possibly more. We're still tracing all the transactions. Naomi set down the report. So Derek was a criminal. Not just a cheater, but an actual criminal. Yes, Patricia said. Which complicates things for you. The IRS will want their money. They can put liens on the property, seize assets. We need to separate you from Derek's crimes. How do we do that? Naomi asked. We cooperate fully with the investigation, Patricia said. We show that you had no knowledge of his activities. We provide documentation of how he hid everything from you. And we negotiate a settlement that protects you while the government goes after Derek's estate. Over the next 2 months, Naomi worked with federal investigators, providing emails, bank statements, and testimony about Derek's deceptions. She showed them how he'd controlled their finances, how she'd never had access to his business accounts, how he'd used her inheritance without her knowledge. The investigators were sympathetic but thorough. They interviewed her sister, her co-workers, her friends. Everyone confirmed the same thing. Naomi had believed she was in a normal marriage with normal financial struggles. She'd had no idea Derek was running a multimillion-dollar operation. The IRS has agreed to a settlement, Patricia told her 3 months after Derek's death. They'll seize the offshore accounts, about $3.2 million, to cover back taxes and penalties. But they're not going to touch the farms themselves. So I keep the farms? Naomi asked. Yes, because you can prove the startup capital came from your inheritance, which was legally yours. Derek used community property to fund his crimes, but the foundational investment was solely yours. The farms are clean. Naomi felt a weight lift off her shoulders. What about the other properties? The ones in Tennessee and North Carolina? Those were purchased entirely with tax-evaded money, Patricia said. The IRS will seize and sell them. But the 5 Georgia farms are yours free and clear. It was bittersweet victory. Naomi was getting back what Derek had stolen, but the government was taking millions he'd hidden. Money that should have been hers. There's more, Patricia said. We found something interesting in Derek's corporate accounts. He was embezzling from his employer. Naomi's stomach dropped. What? For the past 3 years, Derek was routing company funds through fake vendor accounts, then transferring the money to his personal accounts. We estimate he stole at least $500,000 from his company. Did his company know? Naomi asked. Not until we notified them as part of the investigation, Patricia said. They filed a civil suit against Derek's estate. They want their money back. Can they take it from me? Naomi asked. They can try, Patricia said. But we'll argue that you were an unknowing spouse. Derek's life insurance and other assets will likely have to be used to settle with his employer, but we'll protect the farms. Naomi realized she was going to have to give up the $2 million life insurance payment. The money she thought would help her rebuild. Gone to pay for Derek's crimes. I'll end up with just the farms, she said. Yes, Patricia confirmed. But those farms are worth approximately $4.2 million combined, and they're generating over $2 million in annual revenue. You'll be fine financially. Better than fine. It took Naomi a moment to process that. She'd started with a $400,000 inheritance. Derek had stolen it, committed crimes with it, built an empire. Now she was getting back farms worth 10 times what she'd lost. And Derek was getting nothing but a reputation as a criminal and a fraud. "There's one more thing," Patricia said. "We found evidence Derek was planning to disappear." She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were documents for a new identity, property in Costa Rica, and plane tickets dated for 2 months after Derek's death. "He was going to fake his death?" Naomi asked, stunned. "No," Patricia said. "He was going to stage a divorce from you, claim financial ruin, and then disappear to start over with his hidden money. The Costa Rica property was purchased 6 months ago. The identity documents were in progress. He had a timeline." Naomi looked at the timeline. Derek had planned to file for divorce in 3 months, claiming their marriage was over due to financial stress. He would have given her the Atlanta house and told her he had no other assets. Then he would have vanished to Costa Rica with millions of dollars and probably with Tiffany, leaving Naomi with nothing but debt and a divorce decree. "He was going to destroy me," Naomi whispered. "Yes," Patricia said. "But he died before he could. Heart attack at 47. The stress of maintaining so many lies probably contributed." Naomi sat in silence, absorbing this information. Derek hadn't just betrayed her. He'd been planning to completely ruin her while he started a new life. If he hadn't died, she would have lost everything. Instead, she'd gained everything. "What do I need to do now?" Naomi asked. "Make decisions," Patricia said. "You own 5 profitable farms. You have an employee running one of them who was Derek's mistress. You have an opportunity to build something real from the wreckage of Derek's lies. The question is, what do you want to build?" Naomi drove to Willow Creek that afternoon. She didn't call ahead. She just showed up and walked through the fields, looking at everything with new eyes. The farm was beautiful. Rows of healthy plants, modern irrigation systems, happy employees working efficiently. This place was successful because Tiffany knew what she was doing. Whatever else could be said about her, she was a skilled farmer. Naomi found Tiffany in one of the greenhouses, checking tomato plants. The other woman looked up, surprised. "I need to talk to you about the other farms," Naomi said. They sat in the greenhouse office, surrounded by the smell of earth and growing things. "Derek had 4 other farms," Naomi said. "Albany, Valdosta, Columbus, and Athens. Each one specialized in different crops. Did you know about them?" Tiffany shook her head. "I knew he traveled. I knew he had business interests, but I thought it was corporate stuff. Meetings, sales calls. I had no idea he owned other farms." "He hired managers for each one," Naomi said. "Kept them separate. None of you knew about the others. Classic compartmentalization." "How are they doing financially?" Tiffany asked. "Mixed," Naomi admitted. "The mushroom farm in Columbus is highly profitable. The Athens herb farm is breaking even. The other 2 are struggling because Derek hired cheap managers who don't know what they're doing." "What are you going to do?" Tiffany asked. Naomi had been thinking about this for weeks. "I'm going to consolidate. Fire the bad managers. Hire good ones. Turn all 5 farms into a cohesive operation instead of Derek's chaotic empire." "That's smart," Tiffany said carefully. "I need help," Naomi admitted. "I don't know enough about farming to evaluate managers or coordinate multiple properties. I need someone who knows the industry who can help me hire the right people and integrate the operations." Tiffany's eyes widened. "You want me to help manage all 5 farms?" "I want you to be director of agricultural operations," Naomi said. "You'd oversee all 5 properties, help me hire and train managers, coordinate crop planning across the network, and report directly to me on everything. Salary of $120,000 plus bonuses based on overall profitability." Tiffany stared at her. "Why would you do that? Why would you give me more responsibility after everything?" "Because you're good at this," Naomi said simply. "You built this farm from nothing. You know what works. And despite Derek's betrayal, you haven't tried to sabotage anything or claim what isn't yours. You've kept working, kept the farm running, kept the employees happy." "I don't know what to say," Tiffany said. "Say yes or say no," Naomi replied. "But decide fast. I need to make changes soon, and I'd rather do it with someone who knows what they're doing." Tiffany was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "If I do this, if I help you build this into something real, I need to know it won't be used against me later. I need to know you won't suddenly decide I'm too much of a reminder of Derek and fire me." "I can't promise that," Naomi said honestly. I can't promise I won't look at you someday and just be too angry to work with you anymore. But I can promise I'll always be fair. I'll give you clear contracts, fair compensation, and if I ever decide to let you go, I'll do it professionally with appropriate notice and severance. That's more than Derek ever gave me, Tiffany said bitterly. Derek set a very low bar, Naomi said. Tiffany laughed, a broken sound. Yes, he did. She took a breath. Okay, yes, I'll do it. Good, Naomi said. Patricia will draw up a new contract. And Tiffany? This is your chance to build something legitimate. Something that actually belongs to you through work, not promises. Don't waste it. I won't, Tiffany said. Over the next month, Naomi and Tiffany visited all 5 farms. They fired 2 managers who'd been cutting corners and pocketing money. They hired experienced agricultural professionals to replace them. They integrated supply chains, coordinated crop planning, and started building a unified brand. We should call it something new, Tiffany suggested. Not Harvest Moon. That was Derek's name. Let it be yours. Naomi thought about it. Her parents had left her that money to build a future. Now she was finally doing it, just not in the way anyone had expected. Bennett Farms, she said. Simple. Clean. Mine. They rebranded all 5 properties. New signs, new marketing materials, new website. Bennett Farms became known for high-quality organic produce, specialty crops, and sustainable practices. And slowly, Naomi began to see a future that didn't include Derek's shadow. She still hated what he'd done. Still felt the sting of betrayal. But she was turning his lies into something real. Something good. Derek had wanted to steal her future. Instead, he'd accidentally given her an empire. And she was going to make it her own. 6 months after Derek's death, Naomi quit her nursing job. Her supervisor was shocked. Naomi had been one of their most reliable nurses, always picking up extra shifts, always dependable. I'm starting a business, Naomi explained. I need to focus on it full-time. She didn't mention that the business was already successful, already generating more money than her nursing salary ever had. She just walked out of the hospital where she'd worked for 12 years and drove south to Willow Creek. The farmhouse had become her second home. She'd moved some of her belongings there, started spending more time managing the operations instead of just reviewing reports. Tiffany had made it clear the house was big enough for both of them if needed, but Naomi wasn't ready for that. She stayed in the guest cottage Derek had built near the barn. Another one of his lies, he'd told her he was staying in cheap corporate housing in Atlanta while he spent weekends in this beautiful cottage surrounded by farmland. Naomi walked the fields every morning now. She learned the names of employees, understood crop rotations, recognized when plants were healthy or struggling. She wasn't a farmer yet, but she was learning. You're getting good at this, Tiffany said one morning as they inspected a new irrigation system. You ask the right questions now. I had a good teacher, Naomi admitted. It was strange, this relationship they developed. Not friendship, they'd never be friends. But they worked well together. Tiffany knew farming, Naomi knew business management. Combined, they were transforming Derek's chaotic operation into something legitimate. The Columbus Mushroom Farm is exceeding projections, Tiffany reported. The new manager you hired is phenomenal. She's already increased production by 30%. Good, Naomi said. What about Athens? Struggling still. The herb market is oversaturated. We might need to pivot to something else. Can we convert it to microgreens? Those sell well to restaurants. Tiffany nodded, making notes. I'll draw up a plan. This was Naomi's life now. Business decisions, profit margins, employee management. She'd gone from believing she couldn't afford her dreams to running a multi-million-dollar agricultural operation. Her sister visited one weekend, driving down from Atlanta to see what Naomi was building. This is incredible, her sister said, looking around the farm. You really did it. You turned Derek's lies into something real. I'm trying, Naomi said. No. Her sister took her hand. You're succeeding. Look at this place. Look at what you've built in 6 months. Naomi looked around at the thriving farm, the happy employees, the profitable operations. Her sister was right. She was succeeding. But there was still one thing that bothered her. I think about him sometimes, Naomi admitted. I think about confronting him. Asking him why he did it. What was wrong with our marriage that he needed all these lies? Nothing was wrong with you, her sister said firmly. Derek was broken. You couldn't have fixed that. I know, Naomi said. But I still wish I could have looked him in the eye and asked him why I wasn't enough. You were enough, her sister said. You were always enough. Derek was just a greedy, lying man who wanted everything and didn't care who he hurt to get it. That night, Naomi sat in the cottage and went through Derek's journal again. Reading his calculated words, his cold assessment of how to use people, his plans for disappearing with all the money. She found an entry from 2 weeks before his death. Naomi is becoming suspicious about money. She asked about the roof repair again. I told her we'd deal with it in the spring. She accepted it, but I saw doubt in her eyes. I need to be more careful. Maybe start the divorce process earlier than planned. Get out before she figures anything out. He'd known. He'd seen that she was starting to question his lies. And instead of coming clean, instead of trying to make things right, he'd planned to abandon her faster. Naomi closed the journal. She'd read it too many times. She needed to stop looking for answers in Derek's words. He'd never cared enough to be honest. She went outside and stood in the quiet farm night, surrounded by the smell of earth and growing things. This was her answer. Not Derek's journal. Not his lies. This farm, this business, this future she was building. Derek had tried to steal her dreams. But he'd failed. And now she was going to build something so successful, so impressive, that his name would be forgotten while hers became legendary. The next morning, Naomi called a meeting with all the farm managers. They gathered in the Willow Creek barn, 5 people who ran Derek's farms, now her farms. I want to expand, Naomi told them. Bennett Farms is profitable, but we can do more. I want to add a direct-to-consumer division. Subscription boxes. Online sales. Build our brand beyond just wholesale to restaurants. That would require significant investment, one manager said. Website development, packaging, shipping infrastructure. I have the capital, Naomi said. The question is, do we have the capacity? Can we scale up production to meet consumer demand? They spent 3 hours discussing possibilities. By the end of the meeting they had a plan. Start small with a subscription box service, test the market, then expand based on response. Tiffany was quiet during the drive back to Willow Creek. What's wrong? Naomi asked. Nothing, Tiffany said. I'm just thinking about how different you are from Derek. He always wanted to keep things hidden, compartmentalized. You want to build everything out in the open. I'm not afraid of people knowing my business, Naomi said. I'm not hiding anything. I know, Tiffany said. That's what makes you better than him. 6 months turned into 9. Bennett Farms launched the subscription box service and had 500 customers within the first month. Food bloggers started featuring their produce. A lifestyle magazine did a feature on Naomi's transformation from nurse to agricultural entrepreneur. The article was titled, From Betrayal to Bennett Farms, How One Woman Built an Empire from Her Husband's Lies. Naomi's phone exploded with interview requests. Everyone wanted to hear her story. She turned most of them down. This wasn't about Derek or revenge or making him look bad. This was about building something real. But she did accept one interview with a business podcast aimed at women entrepreneurs. What would you say to other women who've been financially controlled by their partners? The interviewer asked. Naomi thought carefully before answering. I'd say your dreams matter. Your money matters. Don't let anyone make you feel small or convince you that you can't handle financial decisions. And if you discover you've been lied to, don't waste time being ashamed. Get angry. Get smart. Take back what's yours. The podcast episode went viral. Naomi got emails from women all over the country, thanking her for speaking out, sharing their own stories of financial abuse and manipulation. She realized her story was bigger than just Derek's betrayal. It was about every woman who'd been told she couldn't handle money, couldn't run a business, couldn't dream big. You've become a symbol, Patricia told her during one of their regular legal update calls. Women see themselves in your story. I just wanted my money back, Naomi said. You got more than that, Patricia said. You got justice. And you're showing other women they can get it too. By the 1-year anniversary of Derek's death, Bennett Farms was valued at $6 million and still growing. Naomi had paid off all of Derek's debts, settled with his former employer, and satisfied the IRS. She owned everything free and clear. She stood at Derek's grave one afternoon, looking at the modest headstone his corporate colleagues had paid for. She hadn't contributed. Hadn't seen the point. I won, she said to the cold stone. You tried to steal my future and I took it back. I built something bigger than you ever imagined. And I did it without your lies. A year ago she'd stood at his funeral, devastated and confused. Now she stood as the owner of a thriving agricultural empire, a woman who'd learned she was stronger than she ever knew. I hope you can see this from wherever you are, she said. I hope you know that every successful harvest, every profitable quarter, every expansion of Bennett Farms is proof that you failed. You tried to break me and instead you freed me. She walked away from the grave and didn't look back. Derek was her past. Bennett Farms was her future. And her future was just beginning. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Naomi was reviewing quarterly reports. Patricia's voice was excited in a way Naomi had rarely heard. The IRS finished their investigation, Patricia said. They found additional hidden accounts. Derek had almost $5 million offshore that nobody knew about. Naomi's hand tightened on the phone. $5 million? Yes. And because you cooperated fully with their investigation, and because they've confirmed Derek hid these assets through criminal fraud, they're returning a portion to you as restitution for the stolen inheritance. How much? Naomi asked. $2.3 million. After taxes and penalties, that's what's being released to Derek's estate, which means to you. Naomi sat down hard. $2,300,000. Money Derek had stolen and hidden now coming back to her. There's a condition, Patricia continued. You have to agree not to sue the government for the remainder. They're keeping roughly $2.7 million to cover Derek's tax evasion and their investigation costs. I agree, Naomi said immediately. When do I get the money? 6 weeks. They're processing the paperwork now. After hanging up, Naomi sat in her office, the same office Derek had used to plan his deceptions, and thought about what to do with the money. She could expand Bennett Farms even more. Buy more land. Invest in equipment. Or she could do something Derek would never have considered. She called Tiffany into the office. I'm starting a foundation, Naomi said. A non-profit to help women who've been financially abused or controlled by partners. I'm going to fund it with the $2.3 million the government is returning. Tiffany stared at her. All of it. The second year, they expanded to 6 cohorts and graduated 72 women. The third year, they launched an advanced program for women who wanted to start their own farms. Bennett Farms provided mentorship, microloans, and ongoing support. We're creating a network, Dr. Crawford explained. Women who went through our program are now hiring other graduates. They're supporting each other. It's become a community. Naomi traveled to some of the small farms their graduates had started. She saw women growing vegetables, raising chickens, selling at farmers' markets. Women who'd been beaten down by life now standing proud in their fields. You gave me this, one graduate told her, gesturing to her thriving urban farm. You showed me I could do it. You did it yourself, Naomi corrected. I just provided the training. But she knew it was more than training. It was hope. It was belief. It was proof that life after betrayal could be better than life before. The business magazines started calling her a leader in sustainable agriculture and women's empowerment. She was invited to speak at conferences, to serve on agricultural boards, to advise government programs. From nurse to agricultural mogul to nonprofit leader, one article said. Naomi Bennett is redefining what success looks like after betrayal. But Naomi didn't think of herself as a mogul or a leader. She was just a woman who'd refused to let Derek's lies define her. Who'd gotten angry enough to fight and smart enough to win, and who'd decided to use her victory to help others fight their own battles. Standing in her fields one morning, watching Harvest Hope students learn to plant seedlings while Bennett Farms employees harvested mature crops, Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in years. Derek had tried to steal her future. Instead, he'd accidentally given her a purpose. And that purpose was changing the world, one woman at a time. The knock on Naomi's door came on a Wednesday evening, 18 months after Derek's death. 2 FBI agents stood on her porch, their expressions serious. Mrs. Bennett? We need to talk about your late husband. Naomi's stomach dropped. She thought they were done with investigations. The IRS had closed their case. Derek's estate was settled. What could the FBI want now? She invited them in, her hands shaking slightly as she made coffee. We've been investigating corporate fraud at Derek's former employer, the lead agent explained. During that investigation, we discovered evidence of additional crimes your husband committed. What kind of crimes? Naomi asked. The agent opened a file. Money laundering. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Derek wasn't just embezzling from his company. He was using his position to facilitate illegal transactions for third parties. Naomi felt sick. I don't understand. Derek had access to corporate accounts and financial systems, the agent explained. He was routing illegal money through the company's legitimate transactions, taking a cut for himself. We estimate he laundered approximately $15 million over 5 years. 15 million, Naomi repeated numbly. The money came from various sources, shell companies, offshore accounts, possibly organized crime. Derek was essentially running a money laundering operation through his corporate job. I didn't know, Naomi said. I swear I didn't know anything about this. We believe you, the second agent said. Our investigation shows Derek compartmentalized everything. He kept you deliberately in the dark about his activities. Why are you telling me this now? Naomi asked. Because some of the money Derek laundered ended up in accounts connected to your farms, the first agent said. We need to trace every dollar to determine what's clean and what's criminal proceeds. Naomi felt her carefully rebuilt life threatening to collapse. Are you going to seize the farms? Not if we can verify they were purchased with legitimate funds, the agent assured her. We know your inheritance was the startup capital. We just need to trace the money flows to separate your legal business from Derek's illegal activities. They asked for permission to access all Bennett Farms' financial records. Naomi called Patricia immediately, who arrived within an hour. This is a disaster, Patricia said after the agents left. If they find criminal money mixed with your business funds, they could seize everything. The startup money was mine, Naomi insisted. My $400,000 inheritance. That's documented. Yes, but did Derek reinvest dirty money into the farms later? Did he mix illegal proceeds with legitimate profits? That's what they're looking for. The investigation took 3 months. Federal forensic accountants went through every transaction, every account, every transfer. They interviewed Naomi, Tiffany, all the farm managers, and every employee. Naomi couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. She'd built Bennett Farms into something legitimate, something good. The foundation was changing lives. And now Derek's crimes threatened to destroy it all. We found something, Patricia told her during one of their daily update calls. The accountants discovered that Derek was using the Athens farm as a front. What do you mean? Naomi asked. The herb farm was barely profitable, remember? It turns out Derek was recording fake sales to non-existent customers, using those fake invoices to justify transfers of dirty money into the business accounts. He made it look like the farm was selling herbs when actually he was just washing illegal funds. So the Athens farm is compromised, Naomi said. Yes, the FBI will likely seize it. But the good news is that the other 4 farms are clean. The money Derek invested in them traces back to your inheritance and legitimate profits from farm operations. What about the foundation? Naomi asked. The Harvest Hope money came from the IRS restitution. That's clean too, Patricia confirmed. The restitution came from Derek's offshore accounts that were funded by tax evasion, not money laundering. Legally distinct crimes with different money sources. It was surreal, talking about her dead husband's various crimes as if they were just bureaucratic categories. The final FBI report confirmed what Patricia had said. The Athens farm would be seized and sold, with proceeds going to victims of Derek's money laundering scheme. The other 4 farms and the foundation were cleared. You're lucky, the lead agent told Naomi when they closed the case. If Derek had mixed more of the dirty money with your legitimate business, we would have had to seize everything. As it is, you keep most of what you built. Lucky. Naomi felt anything but lucky. She'd lost the Athens property, the least profitable of the farms, but still a $600,000 asset. More importantly, she'd learned that Derek had been even worse than she'd imagined. Not just a liar and a cheat. A criminal who'd facilitated illegal money flows for organized crime. How did I not see it? Naomi asked Tiffany that night, sitting on the farmhouse porch. How did I live with him for 8 years and not see he was a criminal? Because he was good at hiding it, Tiffany said. He compartmentalized everything. Made sure no one saw the whole picture. He could have destroyed everything, Naomi said. If the FBI had found more dirty money in the farms, if I'd lost Bennett Farms and the foundation. But you didn't, Tiffany said firmly. You kept most of it, and you built it legitimately. Derek's crimes are his, not yours. But Naomi felt contaminated. Everything Derek had touched felt tainted now. She called an emergency board meeting for Harvest Hope. Dr. Crawford and the 3 other board members gathered at the farm. I need to tell you something, Naomi said. Derek wasn't just a cheater. He was a criminal. Money laundering. Fraud. And while the foundation's funding is clean, it came from money Derek stole through tax evasion. Some people might say we shouldn't use it. Are you thinking of shutting down the foundation? Dr. Crawford asked. I don't know, Naomi admitted. I want to do the right thing. The right thing, one board member said, is to use that money to help people. Derek stole it from the government. The government gave it back to you as restitution. Now you're using it to change lives. That's justice, not crime. The women in our programs don't care where the money came from originally, another board member added. They care that it's helping them build new futures. Shutting down would hurt them, not Derek. Dr. Crawford leaned forward. Naomi, you've done more good with that money in 18 months than Derek did in his entire life. Don't let his crimes take that away from the women who need it. Naomi realized they were right. Closing the foundation wouldn't punish Derek, he was already dead. It would only hurt the women the foundation served. Okay, she said. We keep going. But we're going to be completely transparent. Anyone who asks about our funding will get the full truth. I won't hide Derek's crimes to protect our reputation. Agreed, the board said in unison. The next Harvest Hope newsletter included an article titled, Our Origin Story, Turning Stolen Money into Hope. Naomi wrote it herself, detailing Derek's crimes, the IRS restitution, and her decision to use the money for good. I can't change where this money came from, she wrote, but I can change what it does. Every woman we help is proof that good can come from evil, that justice can come from betrayal, that hope can come from theft. The response was overwhelming. Women wrote to thank her for her honesty. Donors increased their contributions. The foundation's reputation grew stronger because of the transparency, not despite it. You turned it around again, Patricia told her. Derek's crimes could have destroyed you. Instead, you're using them as teaching moments. But privately, Naomi struggled. She had nightmares about federal agents seizing the farms. About everything she'd built being revealed as illegitimate. About going to prison for crimes she didn't commit. You need to talk to someone, Tiffany said one morning after finding Naomi awake at 3 a.m., reviewing financial records for the 100th time. A therapist. This is PTSD. Naomi knew she was right. She started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma from financial abuse. You're experiencing hypervigilance, the therapist explained. Derek's betrayals keep getting deeper. First the affair, then the stolen money, then the tax fraud, now money laundering. Your brain is waiting for the next shoe to drop. What if there is another shoe? Naomi asked. What if there's something worse I haven't found yet? Then you'll deal with it like you've dealt with everything else, the therapist said. But you can't live in constant fear of what might be discovered. The investigations are closed. The government cleared you. You've done everything right. It took months, but slowly Naomi learned to sleep again. Learned to trust that Bennett Farms was safe. Learned that Derek's crimes were his alone, not hers to carry. And she learned something else. She was stronger than any crime Derek could have committed. He tried to build an empire on lies and illegal money. She'd built one on honesty and hard work. His empire had collapsed under investigation. Hers had survived and grown stronger. That was the difference between them. Derek had been smart but corrupt. Naomi was smart and honest. And in the end, honest always won. 2 years after Derek's death, Naomi received a letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Derek's former employer had located additional victims of his fraud schemes. Small businesses he'd convinced to invest in fake agricultural ventures, using Bennett Farms as proof of his success. He showed people photos of our farm, Naomi told Patricia in disbelief. He convinced them to invest in similar projects that didn't exist. Then he took their money and disappeared it into offshore accounts. There were 7 victims. They'd each lost between $50,000 and $200,000. Combined, Derek had stolen over $900,000 from people who trusted him. They're asking if you'll participate in a victim impact statement hearing, Patricia said. The U.S. Attorney wants to use Derek's case as an example of sophisticated fraud. They think your testimony could help other cases. Will I have to see the other victims? Naomi asked. Yes, Patricia said. They'll be there too. Naomi thought about it. These were people Derek had hurt just like he'd hurt her. They deserve justice too. I'll do it, she said. The hearing was held in federal court in Atlanta. Naomi sat in a room with 7 other people, 3 women, 4 men, all victims of Derek's schemes. He told me he was building a network of organic farms, one man said. Showed me photos of this beautiful property in Willow Creek. Said if I invested $100,000, I'd get 20% ownership in a similar farm he was developing in South Carolina. I gave him the money. The South Carolina farm never existed. I forgive you, she repeated. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying hatred. You took enough from me. You don't get my future anger too. She walked away from the grave for the last time. She had Bennett farms to run, Harvest Hope programs to oversee, victims to support, a life to build. Derek was her past. Everything else was her future. And her future was full of things he'd never given her. Honesty, purpose, and the satisfaction of knowing she'd turned his greatest crimes into her greatest victories. 18 months later, Naomi stood at a podium in front of 300 people at the National Women's Agricultural Conference. She'd been asked to give the keynote address on building success after betrayal. 3.5 years ago, she began, I was a nurse working double shifts, believing my marriage was struggling financially. I had no idea my husband had stolen my inheritance, built a multi-million-dollar agricultural empire, and was living multiple lies. I had no idea I was capable of running a business, leading a nonprofit, or rebuilding my life. She looked out at the audience. Women farmers, entrepreneurs, business leaders, survivors of financial abuse. Today, Bennett Farms is valued at $12 million. We operate 4 successful organic farms across Georgia. We employ 75 people full-time. We supply produce to over 200 restaurants and sell directly to 5,000 subscribers. The Harvest Hope Foundation has graduated 312 women from our agricultural training programs, and 87% of them are now employed in agriculture or running their own farms. Applause filled the conference hall. I'm not telling you this to brag, Naomi continued. I'm telling you this because 3.5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined any of it. The woman I was then believed she was barely capable of paying bills. The woman I am now runs a multi-million-dollar operation and helps other women build their own futures. She told them about Derek's betrayal, about finding the farm, about discovering the extent of his lies. She talked about the choice she'd made, not to be destroyed by what she'd learned, but to take control of it. The hardest part wasn't the business, she admitted. It was learning to trust myself again. Derek had convinced me I couldn't handle money, couldn't make big decisions, couldn't dream big. Unlearning those lies was harder than learning to run a farm. After her speech, women lined up to talk to her. They shared their own stories of financial abuse, of dreams deferred, of rebuilding after betrayal. You gave me hope, one woman said. My husband controlled every penny for 15 years. Now I'm divorced and scared, but your story shows me I can build something new. You can, Naomi told her. You absolutely can. That evening, Naomi had dinner with a panel of agricultural consultants who'd been at the conference. One of them was Julian Warner, an expert in sustainable farming practices who'd helped several farms transition to organic certification. Your story is remarkable, Julian said. But what impressed me more than the story was your actual farm operation. I visited Willow Creek last month as part of a sustainable agriculture study. Your practices are industry-leading. Thank you, Naomi said. We work hard to do things right. I'm consulting with a farm in North Carolina that's struggling with their organic transition, Julian said. Would you be willing to share your protocols? Maybe visit and advise them? They talked for 2 hours about farming practices, business models, and the agricultural industry. Julian was knowledgeable and passionate, and he treated Naomi as an equal expert, not as someone to be impressed by her story. It was refreshing. Over the next months, Naomi and Julian worked together on several consulting projects. Bennett Farms became known as a model for sustainable agriculture, and other farms paid for Naomi's expertise. You've become an industry leader, Tiffany told her one day as they reviewed consulting requests. People respect your farming knowledge now, not just your personal story. Good, Naomi said. I'm tired of being the woman whose husband betrayed her. I'd rather be the woman who runs successful farms. Julian started visiting Willow Creek regularly for consulting work. He and Naomi developed a friendship based on mutual respect and shared interests. He never asked about Derek unless Naomi brought it up. He saw her as she was now, not as a victim of her past. Would you like to have dinner sometime? Julian asked after a consulting meeting. Not work-related. Just dinner. Naomi hesitated. She hadn't dated since Derek's death. Hadn't even thought about it. I understand if you're not ready, Julian said quickly. I just wanted you to know I'd like to spend time with you outside of work discussions. Let me think about it, Naomi said. She talked to her therapist about it at their next session. Do you want to date him? The therapist asked. I don't know, Naomi admitted. Part of me wants to. He's intelligent, kind, respectful. But part of me is terrified. Derek destroyed my ability to trust. Derek lied to you, the therapist said. But that doesn't mean all men will lie. Julian knows your story. He's seen who you are now. If you want to explore this, you can. And if it doesn't work out, you'll survive that too. Naomi agreed to dinner. Just dinner, no pressure, no expectations. They went to a small restaurant in Macon, talked about farming and music and travel. Julian told her about his childhood on his family's farm in Oregon, about learning to respect the land and the work. I love what you've built, he said. Not just the business success but the values behind it. You could have made Bennett Farms just about profit. Instead, you made it about empowerment. That was the only thing that made sense, Naomi said. Derek built an empire for himself. I wanted to build something that mattered to more than just me. That's rare, Julian said. Most people who get hurt become protective and selfish. You became generous. They had dinner again the following week. And the week after that. Slowly, carefully, Naomi opened up to the possibility of caring about someone new. Julian never pushed. Never demanded more than she was ready to give. He respected her boundaries, understood her hesitation, and valued her for who she was. I like him, Naomi told Tiffany one evening. I'm glad, Tiffany said. You deserve to be happy. Their relationship had evolved too. Tiffany was no longer just the other woman or the employee. She was a partner in building Bennett Farms' success, a key part of the Harvest Hope Foundation, and something close to a friend. Do you ever think about dating? Naomi asked her. Tiffany laughed. Sometimes. But I'm still working through my trust issues. Derek really did a number on both of us. We survived, Naomi said. More than survived, Tiffany corrected. We won. 4 years after Derek's death, Bennett Farms held its annual Harvest Festival. Thousands of people came to the Willow Creek property to buy produce, eat farm-to-table meals, and learn about sustainable agriculture. Naomi stood on a platform overlooking her fields, watching families enjoy the festival. Harvest Hope graduates worked the information booth, sharing their success stories. The 7 fraud victims Derek had stolen from walked through the fields they'd unknowingly funded, now receiving quarterly profit checks from the farm's success. Julian stood beside her, his hand in hers. What are you thinking about? He asked. About how far I've come, Naomi said. 4 years ago I was standing at a funeral, broken and confused. Today I'm standing in fields I own, surrounded by people I've helped, building a future I actually chose. You should be proud, Julian said. I am, Naomi agreed. Not because I survived Derek's betrayal, but because I built something better than anything he ever imagined. She looked out at the festival, at the happy crowds, at the thriving farm that had started as Derek's secret and become her legacy. He thought he could keep me small, Naomi said. Thought he could steal my future and I'd never know. He was wrong. He underestimated you, Julian said. Everyone underestimated me, Naomi replied, including myself. But I learned something important. I'm capable of so much more than I was told. So are all the women we're helping. That's the real victory, not taking back what Derek stole, but discovering what I was always capable of. The sun set over the festival, painting the sky in shades of blue and silver. No warm golden hour, just the cool clarity of evening light. Naomi thought it was perfect, clean and clear, like the life she'd built from the wreckage of Derek's lies. Ready to go greet the guests? Julian asked. Yes, Naomi said. Let's go. They walked down together into the crowd, into her future. Derek was gone, his secrets exposed, his crimes documented. But Naomi remained, stronger than ever, building an empire of hope from the ashes of his betrayal. And she was just getting started. The farms would keep growing. The foundation would help more women. Her relationship with Julian would develop at its own pace. The fraud victims would continue receiving their share of the success. Everything Derek had tried to steal, Naomi had reclaimed and multiplied. Everything he'd used to hurt her, she transformed into power. That was her ultimate revenge, not destroying what Derek built, but making it better than he ever could have. She'd won. Completely. Absolutely. And the harvest of her victory would continue for years to come.